Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage we're doing an oil change on the 2.4 Volkswagen T4. Okay, so what do we need to do this task? Well, first of all, you need a few tools. You're going to need a 17mm socket to actually undo the drain plug on the sump. You're going to need a 13mm spanner and probably a 13mm socket with a short extension. And that's because to get the oil filter out, you're going to have to take the under tray off, so you might as well do that anyway. I've got a very large socket here. This one is a 9/16 Whitworth, which is a reasonable fit. I don't think it's the intended size, but it'll be fine for me. And that's for the oil filter itself. Obviously you can use a chain wrench wrapped around this, or a band, or you can bodge a screwdriver through it if it's too tight to undo. But it shouldn't be that tight. But the filter has a hex drive on the end, and that's my chosen socket to help me get the oil filter off. You're also going to need a copper washer. You know, either buy the one for the sump plug, or just have a selection around you. And I've got some new bobbins to put the under tray back on with, because I know one of them is broken. You can buy them individually, bespoke for the job, or just get generic Rover Mini 1990 on if you're in the UK. But anything with a 13mm thread either end, and essentially something about the 20mm to 25mm thickness in the middle is going to be fine. You don't need to spend a lot of money. They're just stopping that under tray from rattling. And the other rather vital element of the oil change is you're going to need some oil. This is what I've used, or going to use I should say. It's from Euro Car Parts. It's their own brand, but it's a generic brand. It's the higher end of their in-house branding. So fully synthetic is what I've gone for, and I'm going for 540, and that's for petrol and diesel. And these I've got two of, because there's about 6.5 litres in your engine, so you're going to need at least one of these and a couple of small ones. I got two, so I've got some for topping up. Okay, so if you're just going to change the oil and not change the filter, and that's not something I'm recommending, but I know it's something that has to happen sometimes. There is the sump plug, and you can get at it because there's a nice dent in the under tray here, so it's a very simple, straightforward job. To be honest, you can do it without even putting a vehicle on ramps if you're prepared to really scrub around underneath. And just to orientate you guys, there's the wheel straight across, in line with the wheel, in the middle of the vehicle, facing backwards. So that is the back of the van. Now, if you do want to change the oil filter, then unfortunately access isn't brilliant, and it is almost impossible with this under tray on. So we're going to be taking it off, and that's held in place by this. And what should be there, remember I talked about rubber bobbins? One's broken, come off. There's a rubber bobbin between there and there. Let's just swing you around, give you a view. So we're undoing those first. That just allows the tray to drop down on a couple of hooks here. and then on either side, so I'm now looking up inside the wheel arch. Again, there's the wheel. I'm lying on my back. You look up and there is one nut there, bolt I should say, one bolt there, and they're 13s. I'll be undoing them with my socket on an extension. Same on the other side, and that will then allow you to lower this tray. These hooks you can sort of unhook from back here, hinge the whole thing down, and off she comes. So I'm going to do that. There we go. And it doesn't drop on your head normally because the front edge is kind of trapped inside the front bumper. So if you pull the front bumper forward a touch, it'll drop out. The back edge is hooked in. So the correct way to do it is this. Grab hold of tray through this hole, back, unhook it from the bumper, keep pushing back, and it will stay hooked at the far end, and then when you pull it forward, should unhook, but it doesn't. You get jiggle. There you go. And we're out. So here is the under tray. Quite a significant item. Gives excellent protection to the underside of the engine. These should retain a piece of insulation. But like most of these vans over the years, that's disappeared because it's become clogged up with oil and rubbish, and at some stage just been removed. So this will be a little bit more boomy and rattly than intended. Little look on the underside. You see why these vans are very well protected. And that's the hook that goes in for the hole on the bottom of the vehicle. And there should be a rubber bobbin between here and the body. So now back underneath, here is the drain plug. I've already thoroughly warmed the engine before I put it onto the ramps, which is a good idea because it makes the oil thinner, it's going to flow more, and you'll get more of the rubbish out of the van. So we're going to tackle that now and get the majority out. The oil filter is up here and we'll deal with that afterwards. Wow, this I was not expecting. There we go. Blimey. Right, obviously do a bit of lining up. I've got a couple of containers ready. You don't want to be caught out with overflows. Try not to let the plug drop in. Oh, bit of a spill. Coming out very quickly indeed. Seeming very thin, which is in part rather good news because I warmed the engine up for that very purpose. And in part bad because it might suggest there's some fuel in there as well. and we'll let that drain for a while. Okay, so all we've missed is I strain the oil through the sieve in the bottom of that filter, and you see there's some very small bits of debris which I'll look at closer later, but so little in there, but I'm very impressed. And there isn't a magnet on the sump, so that is probably all the debris that's in there. I put a new copper washer on and put the sump plug back in just so that I can get back underneath. So, next bit, the oil filter. So, there's the back of the wheel, there's the sump plug. We look up, I'm going to insert you, excuse the expression. There is our oil filter, just above that engine mount. So, not the easiest thing to get at, certainly not the easiest thing to film. So that is my best line of sight impression. So I will get on with undoing that and get back to you. 30 mil. Well, I learn something every day. 30 mil socket needed on some makes of oil filter. Anyway, we're in situ. She's coming off reasonably. Oil filters should not really be much more than hand tight. So it's really just about being able to get a grip on them. As for obvious reasons, they're often oily. Remember, this is going to be full of oil. So, A, you should have your bucket under it. B, try and keep it upright when you remove it. And try not to drop it, even though this is going to be difficult because it's a slippery little bugger. And there she comes. Okay. Leave that there to drain for a bit. I'm going to put about half the amount of oil in this that it actually takes. I'm just pouring it in through the hole, new oil obviously, because you'll only spill it if you try and fill it, but it does mean there's less airlock, if you like, to burp out of the system. It takes a while to fill up because there's a paper element. It does have to absorb the oil initially. Okay. Use some of the oil that's on there to lube the groove that the seal goes in. Some all over the seal, which means it should be easy to tighten up and it won't snag and pull out of position. And put our seal back on, push it down nice and firmly, burp the oil out, and it should stay in place, and it is. Right, I'm just going to wipe the oil off my gloves. And now, even though it's a bit difficult to film, I'm going to go back underneath and just screw the new filter into place. So, catch you when I've done that. In order to fit these much more readily available and cheaper rubber bobbins for the under tray, this is the old one that I've just taken off. You see that the flange is much larger, and that gives us a small issue because this clears a shape in the pressing where it's screwed through. I'll show you that in 1 second. So this just needs about 5 mil cutting off the washer and rubber on one face. These cost me about £1.80 each, so it's all worthwhile. There we go, and that will now fit. Two modified bobbins. Back underneath again. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you what I'm on about. So there is one of the existing bobbins, and this is the little shape that we were going to have trouble getting around before. This one's, you can see, more or less gone as well. But the missing one came from there, and if I grab one of the modded bobbins, just taking the nut off. And now, with that little section cut out, that will go into there just nicely. Nut on the back. And tighten it up. These all stop vibrations and ringing sounds from the engine bay. There we go. Take the nut off. Put it somewhere easy to find when I'm struggling underneath. And I shall switch the other one while I'm at it. One hole. There we go. Back in situ. Okay, so despite knowing that the engine takes about 6 litres, I drained out 5 litres into another can like this, and a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is going to put about 4.5 litres in, start the engine, drop her down off the ramp, and then make the final adjustments. Back down on the ground.